Chapter 790, The End of the Diary. All the mausoleums have been built. What's done cannot be undone. Klein looked at the diary page in his hand, as his thoughts boiled over, as ideas kept emerging and shattering. From his point of view, this diary page of Emperor Roselle nearly proved his previous conjectures. He had chosen to forcefully switch to the Black Emperor pathway in his later years, doing so at the cost of going mad to become a sequence Zero true god. What drove the Emperor to make such a decision? What did he discover that resulted in his agitation, rashness, and loss of composure in the previous diary entry? And compared to back then, his emotions in this diary entry appear calm and composed, but it feels like he is even more extreme. It's hard to imagine what the Emperor experienced or encountered in his later years that resulted in him having such an abnormal situation. The madness that angels are embroiled with to begin with, or is it something that had happened to the faith of the believers that kept him anchored his rationality? If he was normal, shouldn't he hold back a little and strive for certain outcomes before finding an opportunity to devour the hidden sage? Klein instantly thought of many things, but he was unable to find any evidence. And on this page of goatskin, there were only 2 short lines of text, as though it indicated the final diary page of Emperor Roselle's life. The end of the year or the beginning of the new year was the day he was suspected to have perished in the White Maple Palace. An emperor of an era, a transmigrator's last words. Klein sighed silently as he flipped to the goatskin beneath. The diary page didn't have a date, but at the top of the page was a line in Fasak. Immediately follows the previous page. The words were written neatly and elegantly, very different from Emperor Roselle's handwriting. It was obvious that it was added by someone else. It's probably a note by Queen Mystic, to indicate that this is the last part of the diary, written after the Emperor said that what's done cannot be undone. But why isn't there a date? Klein was deeply puzzled as he read the corresponding content, his gaze freezing up. I believe I'm not the only transmigrator in this world. If there's anyone else who can read my diary, remember to carefully select your Beyonder pathway. Once you choose this, it pretty much confirms your allies and your enemies. I'm unable to give any actual suggestions because I myself can't see the true faces of the 7 deities or those evil gods. This might be partially related to the second blasphemy slate that the ancient organization hides. Unfortunately, I only have a rough idea of the hidden parts, and I'm unable to verify them. Similarly, I don't know what's written on the first blasphemy slate either. A useful warning is to not choose pathways with sequence zeros that are occupied, and also be careful of neighboring sequence zeros and sequence ones. I've suffered tremendously on this aspect. As for what sequence represents, search for my other diary pages if you aren't aware. This page is equivalent to the afterword of my life. If I succeed, I'll be a god and it will be another story. If I were to fail, there wouldn't be a future. Perhaps, well, you know. Go, my friend who understands my diary, go seek out the secret of transmigration and the truth hidden within. I'll be watching you if I'm still alive. Finally, let me warn you that you have to remember. Be careful of the moon. Klein wasn't surprised about there being more than one transmigrator. After all, he had long known of a senior in the form of Emperor Roselle. He was puzzled about the details that the Emperor had used to determine that there wasn't only one transmigrator. This was a very important point, as it held great meaning as to whether there were incomparable problems in his bid to return home. This was like an unknown equation. Without enough examples and conditions, there was no way to obtain the correct answer, no matter how he tried to solve it. Only with enough equations could he find the correct answer. The Emperor should have written his discoveries on this matter in the previous diary entries. Unfortunately, I have no way of knowing where it is in order to do a targeted search and recovery. Klein silently sighed before considering the other contents in the afterword. The hidden contents in the second blasphemy slate, which the Twilight Hermit Order showed. Did they deliberately hide the contents, or did they not actually obtain it? The second blasphemy slate was actually split into 2 parts, with the other half landing in the hands of other factions. My pathway has already been determined. It was selected based on the exclamation found in Emperor Rosel's diary. From the Emperor's afterward, I can be a bit assured. The Seer pathway doesn't have a sequence 0 because the MAD sequence 1 Zeratul is still alive. And according to the law of Beyonder characteristics conservation, this subdivision part can probably be called the law of incompatibility. If there's a sequence 1, there's no sequence 0. I need to be careful of Zeratul, Mr. Dor, Blasphemer Ammon, and Palaz Zarost, as well as the other sequence 1s who exist in these 3 pathways. What does being careful of the moon mean? Be careful of the primordial moon. That could be said directly. Wait, the Emperor apparently had thoughts of exploring the Crimson Moon before. Could it be that he finally committed himself to do it and discovered something on the moon, which is why he warned other transmigrators to be careful of the moon? The moon has something to do with transmigration. Yes, the Emperor's tone indicates that he still has some contingency plans and he might not completely perish. He might be watching me. There should also be clues to such matters, and they should also be written in the earlier diary entries. As conclusions and puzzlements flashed through Klein's mind, he finally turned solemn. He made the diary in his hand vanish and looked towards Katlia. Do you have anything you want to ask? Katlia nudged the heavy glasses on her nose and politely bowed her head. Honorable Mr. Fool, I wish to know if Emperor Rosel is still alive. This question snapped the other members of the Tarot Club out of their own thoughts as they looked towards the end of the bronze table in agitation. Although Emperor Rosel being alive wasn't directly related to them, nor would it bring any obvious influence, this topic was enough to stir the thirst hidden deep in the hearts of people regarding rumors and gossip. I thought I would be immune to such matters after advancing to a psychiatrist. Sigh, I'm really curious. Audrey looked at Mr. Fool with bright eyes as she waited for him to give the answer. Only Derek was uninterested in the matter. The reason why he looked at Mr. Fool was solely because everyone else had done so. Indeed, Queen Mystic's questions are basically targeted at the diary pages she provides. Klein didn't feel stumped as he skillfully chuckled. Perhaps. By using the answer, perhaps, he was expressing that Emperor Rosel had the hope of saving himself. As for whether he eventually succeeded or whether there was an accident, it wasn't in the scope of the question that might not have an answer. Perhaps, Mr. Fool is implying that Emperor Rosel might still be alive. Katlia and company felt as though they had heard the greatest secret in the world, as they felt a little agitated and excited. However, they could also sense the underlying tone in Mr. Fool's words. Due to the lack of diary entries, and with him having just awoken recently, he was unable to determine if Emperor Rosel had seized an opportunity. To determine that would require more clues and evidence in the future. Regardless, Emperor Rosel was likely mentally prepared for the assassination. Without giving Justice, the Hanged Man, and company to think of the related problems, Klein leaned back and said with a calm tone, "That's all from me." Fors hurriedly snapped out of her fantasizing of Rosel's late years as she looked to the end of the bronze table. Honorable Mr. Fool, I wish to communicate privately with the world. It will end quickly. What does she want to communicate with Jayaman Sparrow about? Isn't Mr. X's matter over? Klein thought in puzzlement as he nodded gently. Yes. Following that, he blocked the senses of the other members and controlled the world to chuckle hoarsely. Is there anything else? Fors deliberated for 2 seconds and said, This is the matter. Mr. X's head allowed me to receive a handsome reward. I believe that I didn't pay enough on this matter to match the difficulty of the mission. Therefore, I wish to compensate you. How much do you wish to receive? Not bad. You actually want to compensate me without any prompting. Although Miss Magician is a little greedy on gaining petty advantages, she's still an honest person. It's very normal to earn some profit while making a transaction. It's not considered greedy. The pleasantly surprised Klein sighed inwardly in praise as he made the world chuckle. How much can you pay? Fors hesitated for a moment and said, £5,000. She had used the £10,000 price she had informed her teacher and planned to split it evenly with Mr. World. Furthermore, she needed the recipe, crystal ball, and Beyonder ingredient. Thus, She planned on selling the two properties and give him money directly. And as for the reason why Fours was this generous, it had to do with the mission being harder than she had expected while also paying too low a price. In addition, she was increasingly fearful of the world Jayam and Sparrow. She didn't dare to offend the crazy adventurer and terrifying bounty hunter. The Abraham family gave quite a huge reward. Klein controlled the world to say with a laugh, "If you can use large amounts of gold coins in place of notes, you can pay less. It will just depend on how much you can gather." "I'll try my best." Although Fours was very puzzled over why Mr. World valued gold coins that much, she didn't dare to ask. He had done the same with Ma'am Hermit's transaction previously. She paused before asking, "Mr. World, when would you need to use Leymano's travels?" "I plan on renting it out before and after that period in order to earn some money and be yonder powers." Rent it out, rent out a mystical item. Klein was taken aback upon hearing that. He never expected Miss Magician to have such business-oriented mind.